So talking about living life, I think just so that I want to, this is probably something that would be interesting for me as well as the viewers. Um, can you tell about how Swamiji used to express once he entered into the Parabhairava state, specifically regarding, how he was enjoying the whole, the display of the universe itself, if you could recall that. So I think he would, ask for some sweets and a shawl and things like that. This was, I think, closer to the US trip or so.
Yeah, in terms of his life, how he lived his life, he never held on to things. So for example, people were always bringing him gifts. We did. We also did. We come from the West. You'd want to give him the master some gift, something that makes him happy, which also makes you happy. I mean, that's all for you.
Yeah, certainly.
Dad, quick question. What was Swamiji like when he became Parabhairava? That was the question. What was he like when he became Parabhairava, when he called you guys? What did he say when he called from India and then he came to America, right? Who was Swamiji any different than what he used to be?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us what happened. Tell Dad, yeah?
We called one time because we were in the States, and he was in, and so George was living there. George Marshall was living with him at that time, and and George would have him he would have George make these phone calls to the West, and so he had to make this one. I remember one time he made this phone call to us, and it was so surprising because he said, "Hello, John." And I said, "Hello." He says, "I want you to know I'm no longer a Swami Lakshmi Jew. I'm now Parabhairava." I said, "What?" He said, "I want you to know I'm not Swami Lakshmi Jew. I'm Parabhairava."
A complete identification with Parabhairava, right?
I've been upgraded.
And he was so happy. Yeah.
So what was he like when he came to America, when he came and lived with us on Kelmore Street, and then when we were in Hancock Park? What was any stories that you remember of what Swamiji was like playfully when he was in the States when he came?
We felt one thing that he kind of was, when he came to the States, he was more free about his, he wasn't so restricted. I mean, when he was living in his community in Kashmir, he was, as I said, very restricted by Dharmic principles. But when he came to the U.S., for example, he would put on a Western shirt instead of wearing anymore. He'd just wear a shirt. So, he tried this and tried dressing like a Western. He just did naturally. He would just be more Western. Not in some ways yes, in some ways no. He still followed all his. I mean, he was always a very strict vegetarian, so that was there, and his dharmic rules that way. But in terms just of living life, he just was seen more open and free in that way. We not restricted by the bounds of the life in Kashmir that he had, and he was the same person. I mean, Swamiji in the U.S. was like the same. People come to see him, and he'd be the same open person, just willing to have everybody, willing to accept everybody. And he was really always just like but he was more jovial in the West. I would say that he was, joking and more fun like, huh?
Yeah. He said, let's go shopping. I went, because we never did that in Kashmir. And I said, okay. So we drove over to the shops, and he looked around and he saw things, and he said, things are very beautiful here. And I think he bought a couple things for people back in India, some of his devotees, especially his close ones that were living in the same house as him, Prabha and Sharaka Devi. And it was so much fun having him there. He was
did.
there for 4 months.
He did start, he'd go out, when you go out, he'd go shopping, he'd start buying things. He was buying things for the temple in Kashmir. For his temple for worship.
Amritesh.
He bought,
Yeah.
started buying things, and he started packing these trunks with things to take back. He had so much fun shopping. Yeah. And he got one of those, at that time, he was starting to lose the use of his legs. I know about that. So he knew, and so he had
Wheelchair.
then he had that.
Is that scooter wheelchair? That scooter wheelchair.
Oh yeah, that he could drive himself.
Yeah, electric. Mm.
Mhm.
So they go shopping in that everywhere.
Right. Right.
He tried that. He was a jovial kind of that person. He was really fun loving in one way, that way when he was here.
Also, there was this instance of where he went to the dentist, and then later on he came and mentioned something, right? Could you state that as well?
Remember where he didn't use Novocaine and he talked, and he had all of his dental work done and how he went into samadhi within the pain. Give me better.
We
Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Wait.
Oh, they remembered. Yeah.
We went to Srinagar to see the dentist. I think he was the only dentist in Kashmir at the time, and he helped Swamiji to get out of pain. And he said, I'm going to have to give you some anesthesia. And Swamiji said, no, I'll be fine. And he was, and he got better. His tooth.
No, but he said the pain feels so wonderful.
Oh yeah, right.
Imagine how wonderful this pain is.
Imagine, yeah, enjoying it as a,
Yeah, something enjoyable.
As a divine experience.
Yeah. I mean, I've read it in the scriptures that these things happen, but it's fascinating to know that, you've witnessed it yourself, where Swamiji is actually going through all of this, and he's compassionate enough to express it so that it gets recorded as a memory, and then later on we are still discussing it, right? So
Yes.
it's a beautiful thing.
Never felt that he was hiding things or trying to acting, to make an impression on people. In fact, that's one of the things he always laughs about and talks about fraud masters. When people come, they dress up and they have they wear all their
Yeah.
outfits and so forth, and then when they leave, they put that all aside and they go back to their ordinary lives, or this completely different life. It's the only perv put that on just when public is around, just so they can impress others around with their so-called spirituality like that. Yeah, he was against that kind of show of things. He didn't like show. In fact, all the years that we were with him, although now that on the other end of all those years, and looking back at all the lectures and the times that we were with him, he'd give lectures and he'd talk about spiritual experiences, and sometimes he'd give a hint about his own experiences, but he would those. Remember, at the time they were kind of hidden, so you didn't get it, you didn't really hear it. Then you listen to it later on. He said, "Oh, here he's saying that he had that experience, or here he said that, and he's living that experience there." But he never said, if you ask him, how's your experience? You do, what level are you, Swamiji? He'd say, I'm just like you. We're all working, striving to be something more like that. He would never brag or explain it until the very end of his life. Then he finally he had after he had that Parabhairava experience, he gave that lecture. It's part of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's 6th chapter where he talks about his experience of what happened to him.
Yeah.
But before that, he would never talk about these things. And so you could, if you listen to the lectures later on, you can see that he mentioned it here. Oh, he didn't mention here, but he hid it. And my experience in his life was, if he didn't want you to remember something, he wouldn't remember it, even though he just said it. If it wasn't something he wanted you to kind of carry and hold on to as something important, then you would never remember it happening. Then you hear it later on. Oh, I don't remember that. I was there, but at the time, he didn't remember it. It was kind of
It's also in the Bhagavad Gita recordings that Swamiji talks about how people get initiated further on under, how people get initiated after his passing. So could you mention about that as well a little bit?
Yeah, that because that was a big, that was a very important question for people. They want to know because he was no longer in this world, and there was no designated successor of his. I mean, like that. Who's going to be the next person that would be the person you would go to get initiation and so forth in terms of worldly person. So they, so that was a question that was asked to him, and he at that one and during one lecture, and he points to the camera. He says, "Through this, through this, through my darshan, seeing my darshan and and hearing my lectures and saying my darshan, they'll be initiated." And and so many my experience has been since that time of meeting lots of people and hearing about what they've experienced, having watched his lectures and listened to him and so forth, and they all of a sudden they're having dreams of Swamiji at night, and a lot of other things begin to happen for them. And their whole life becomes different. My feeling is the Lord Shiva's initiation can happen in very, in his Shaktipada can be very, very subtle, and you don't know what's happening, but it's really happening, just like right now, for example. And so even though it's going on, when you're thinking about spiritual things, that's always what's happening. And so in our Shaivism, that the teaching is given to us, and so people that want to study, they become filled with that, the thirst for Shaivism, just like he did. It just happens to you. You just can't stop it. It's like an unscratchable itch. You just want more. You want to find out this. How about that?
It's grace.
Yeah.
It's grace.
Mhm.